Welcome to today's edition of USEA's Global Briefing. I'm Melissa Brown, a Senior Program Coordinator here at USEA, and I am joined by Mr. Gert Siniloo, the Director General for the Department of Connectivity and Climate and Energy Diplomacy at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Estonia. How are you?
Fine, and thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining us. Before we dive deep into energy, let's look at some of the past historic relationship between the US and Estonia. The US never recognized the Soviet occupation of Estonia, a policy that served as the cornerstone of our bilateral relationship for 50 years. From your perspective in the ministry, how does that historical legacy of legal continuity shape the trust in diplomatic shorthand between Tallinn and Washington today?
That is a great question, and the foundation of this non-recognition policy is the Sumner Wells Declaration, which was adopted in 1940 by the then acting U.S. Secretary of State. And of course, in Estonian history, that was a very important step that the U.S. Did, and we were always grateful for that. And I think that still today, when we are, or actually tomorrow, when we are celebrating Estonian Independence Day, 108 years since we declared independence, and the United States is this year celebrating 250 years anniversary of independence. I think it's very important to also look back into the past and see that the Sumner Wells Declaration, which was the foundation of this non-recognition policy, the main aim of that was the upholding of international law and not recognizing hostile takeover of other countries. And I think that has shaped the relations between the United States and Estonia very much, and continues to do so also now. And I also have a personal memory of this because back in 2015, when we were celebrating the 75th anniversary of that declaration, I was doing my internship at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. So it's very nice to be here now, more than 10 years later, and discussing these topics.
Great, and we are currently seeing an evolution in the partnership, moving from a traditional focus on defense and boots on the ground to deep cooperation on cybersecurity and connectivity. How would you describe the current vibe of US Estonia relations as we navigate the complexities of this year?
Well, the Estonia and the United States are, I think, very lucky to have strong relations. They are very much focused on our longstanding security cooperation. We have U.S. Soldiers serving in Estonia and also guaranteeing Estonian security on the ground there. A bedrock of our bilateral relations is, of course, the partnership through NATO, which is the foundation of our collective transatlantic security. Estonia is a country that is also contributing more than 5% of its GDP towards defense expenditure already this year. So we're a country who not only talks the talk but also walks the walk when it comes to doing our part. But I mean, our relations are not only about security cooperation. They are actually much wider. We have a thriving economic cooperation as well. And I think here energy cooperation is something that we did not have at a level that we have today just a few years ago, but it is definitely something where we see a lot of potential also for the future.
Good. And in February 2025, the Baltics successfully synchronized with the European continental grid. Now that the cord is cut with Russia, what is the next great technical or diplomatic hurdle for Estonia's energy security?
Yeah, indeed, the synchronization project, it was kind of the project of the century for the energy sector, because that was the final link between the Baltic states and the Russian energy system. Already back in 2022, when Russia launched its full-scale and brutal invasion of Ukraine, we stopped buying Russian oil, gas, and electricity in just a few months after that invasion. And synchronization, getting our control of our energy system back and then linking it to the Central European synchronous area, that was a very important step. And I think it's also part of this wider effort in Europe to break the energy dependence on Russia, which actually the European Union has effectively broken now. But coming to Estonia, I think one of the main technical challenges in the coming years is something that a lot of countries face, not only in Europe but also in countries across the globe, which is that we need more dispatchable generation capacity. In Estonia, we have relied on oil shale, our local fossil fuel, which has been our source of energy security for many years. But these power plants are getting older and older, and they're not efficient, they're not modern. So we need new sources of power to have a modern and efficient energy system. And here we definitely see gas as one of the solutions, having rapidly deployable gas-fired power plants in our system to have those dispatchable capacities available when needed. So having those power plants, getting investments towards them, creating the regulatory environment, and also getting those power plants built within the next few years is definitely something that we are doing now and taking it very seriously. And when it comes to diplomatic hurdles, then definitely something that we still need to work on is Russian energy in the European energy system. I mentioned that the EU has effectively broken the dependence that we had for so many years, but we still use or some countries in Europe still use Russian energy to some extent. And just at the end of last year, the EU energy ministers agreed on this very remarkable and important strategy, which is called the REPowerEU. The aim of that is to have zero Russian energy supplies in our energy market by actually the end of this year already. We will cease all imports of Russian LNG in Europe, and by September 2027, all pipeline gas imports. And it's, I think, especially important for Estonia, but for Europe as a whole, because energy exports is the main revenue source for Russia to conduct this brutal war of aggression that they have in Ukraine. And we need to take those revenues away to put more pressure on Russia. And here we are also very happy with the U.S. Sanctions towards Rosneft and Lukoil that were announced in last autumn, and we have seen those effects on the ground already. That this is making Russia's life much harder. And is decreasing their revenues, but also the physical exports of oil have also declined now.
Yes, and Estonia has shifted away from the gas conversation. Estonia has been exploring the use of small modular reactors or SMRs to provide a stable baseload power. Could you discuss the significance of the U.S. Department of State's FIRST program in helping Estonia build its nuclear regulatory capacity?
That program, the FIRST program, is very important for us, and we're very happy that the Department of State has such a program, and we hope this program will also continue for many years. Estonia is indeed exploring the possible use of nuclear power for the future, but we also have to keep in mind that we come from a place where we don't have any existing nuclear power plants, so we have no prior history in nuclear power production, which means that we need very much to look at capacity building. We need to have the engineers, the technical staff in place, but also the regulatory personnel and also the regulatory environment with all the necessary legislative acts that you need to have in place to be able to produce nuclear power. And since we're kind of starting from scratch, we really very much appreciate the U.S. assistance in building up these capacities. So knowledge transfer for us is very important and towards supporting that program.
Yes, and Estonia also has ambitious plans for massive offshore wind farms in the Baltic Sea. What role do you see American capital and technology, such as U.S. expertise in grid scale storage or subsea cable security, in bringing these projects to fruition?
Well, definitely there is a business opportunity for U.S. Companies involved in those sectors to come to Estonia and invest in our energy sector. I would say that at this point we are maybe a bit more focused on onshore wind power production because in Estonia we still have quite a lot of land and also municipalities who are welcoming wind power into their communities. We have the necessary frameworks in place to support that, and we see that potential is still very much untapped. So maybe onshore wind power is our kind of first line that we need to overcome. But definitely, I mean the involvement of U.S. companies in storage or cable security is something that we would very much welcome. And just actually a couple of weeks ago, one of the largest European battery storage systems, battery storage parks was opened in Estonia. So we're very proud of that, but it will definitely not be the last project because energy storage is also part of the solution for the energy mix. As I mentioned before, the challenge to have dispatchable generation for the power system, storage can also play a role here. So we have several investments in the pipeline and projects coming into fruition, but there's definitely room for more and also for American companies.
Great. And you've spoken about Estonia's hydrogen valley. How does climate diplomacy play into this? Are we looking at a future where Estonia exports green hydrogen to Central Europe? And how can the U.S. PTEC partnership support that?
That is definitely one of the most interesting future projects that we are dealing with at this point. There is a project that is happening in cooperation with between Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, Finland, Poland, and Germany, which is called the Nordic Baltic Hydrogen Corridor. That starts in Finland, goes through our countries, and then ends up in Germany, where a lot of the industrial consumption is. And basically, the idea of that project is, as you described it, it's producing clean hydrogen and exporting it to the industrial consumers in Central Europe. There is definitely a possibility for Estonian companies to also be a part of that production. However, I would say that already now Estonia is playing an important role in hydrogen technologies. We have several very interesting companies operating in Estonia that are big players in the hydrogen technology supply chain, producing electrolyzers and different elements for electrolyzers. So Elcogen or Stargate Hydrogen are just a few companies that come into mind. And of course, having U.S. support for these projects is also very important, and definitely, I think having regional projects is always something that needs cooperation for many years, and I think the PTEC format is also useful for this to bringing regional actors together and having good projects for the benefit of our consumers.
Oh, yes. And in recent years, they've shown that subsea cables and pipelines are vulnerable to hybrid threats. How are Estonia and the U.S. collaborating specifically on the maritime security of energy interconnectors in the Baltic Sea?
Well, one very concrete example is the Baltic Sentry mission through NATO, which was launched in the aftermath of the damage to the Estonian-Finnish electricity interconnector Estlink 2 that happened on Christmas Day 2024. So it ruined my Christmas that year, unfortunately. But that mission that was launched as a response to that damage was very important for us because it created the maritime presence there to avoid such incidents in the future. Um, these subsea incidents that we have witnessed in Estonia have given us many lessons. One of those is that it all starts with having an overview of what is happening under the sea. So here we have invested a lot of political efforts and also money to have better undersea monitoring capabilities. A couple of weeks ago, Estonia, together with Latvia, Lithuania, and Poland, received a very positive news from the European Commission, who decided to allocate a substantial amount of money, more than 100 million euros, towards increasing the critical infrastructure protection of our energy systems. And that I think also goes to show that the thinking has changed also in Europe, that energy is not just something that we need for keeping the lights on and for our industries and for our consumers, but it is also a very much a part of national security. And so it's in all of our interests that these interconnectors that link us between different countries operate as they should be.
Oh, yes. And there's a growing school of thought that clean tech is the first line of defense. In your role, how do you bridge the gap between environmental goals and national security? Does a wind turbine in Saaremaa represent a climate win, a security win, or both?
Definitely both, because I would say that one of the lessons that we have learned from the war in Ukraine is that when we see these brutal attacks by Russia towards Ukraine's energy infrastructure, then one of the lessons we can learn is that you need a dispersed energy system. You need to have energy sources available throughout your country. You cannot have only a couple of few major power plants operating that, when they are hit, leave the country without power or heat. So I think clean energy, wind power, solar power, spread around as sometimes even micro style power plants. They are very important in having energy security also in place. And what we have also, I think, witnessed in Europe in the last couple of years is that definitely the overdependence on Russian energy was a grave mistake. As I mentioned before, the EU has put in a lot of effort to reduce that dependence, and we have broken that now. But we need something instead of that. So we need new sources of power, and definitely having using your domestic resources and having clean domestic energy production is something that will help us in that. And this is also something where Europe has been successful in the past few years. Already now, almost 50% of European electricity comes from renewable sources. So that is actually a lot, and we aim to have even more in the coming years. So definitely a wind farm is both a win for climate, for security, and also for the economy because it will require maintenance. So you will have companies working on that, but it's also a opportunity for production. Having more technology production in Europe is something that will help us, have the entire supply chain working towards it.
Oh, yes, and our last question is if you were sitting across from the U.S. Secretary of Energy today, what is the one thing you would want them to understand about the unique energy island challenges and opportunities of the Baltic region in 2026?
Well, I would say to Secretary Wright that Estonia is a excellent place of doing business, and that includes the energy sector. We are very lucky to have a strong Estonian-U.S. energy cooperation at this point. According to latest data, already 70% of gas demand in our Baltic-Finnish joint gas market is covered by American LNG imports, and we are also very much looking to the future in terms of nuclear power, where we see a lot of cooperation potential with the United States. We already talked about the first program, but there are a lot of other opportunities as well. So Estonia is open for business.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for joining us today, and thank you to our listeners for joining in. You can go to usea.org to learn more about energy opportunities and more interviews like this. Thank you.